It's another beautiful Sunday afternoon. Welcome to Ask the Pediatrician, and today we are discussing child sexual abuse and making our homes safer for the growth of our children. My guest on the program today is Dr. Uzima Chirwa, who is a registrar pediatrics at UTH at Children's Hospital, who is specialized in this particular field and will be able to guide us through in terms of child sexual abuse, what it is, the types, and of course how we can protect our children at household level. The number that you're seeing on your screen, that's the one that you'll be using to communicate with us right here in the studio. You can simply send us a text message on that number 0955 5070 0955 5070, and we'll be able to respond to your text and of course to your question as well. And the topic of discussion is child sexual abuse. Dr. Uzima Chirwa is in the studio with me to help us really get to this particular topic. Dr. Chirwa, thank you so much for coming today.
Good afternoon, Nelson, and good afternoon, viewers.
I'm glad that you could take some time to come and discuss with us this very, very important topic. First things first, help us understand what child sexual abuse is.
Thank you. So, child sexual abuse is the involvement of a child in any sexual activity that he or she does not fully comprehend, or that he or she cannot give consent to, or that violates the society's laws and taboos. So this is a child in Zambia below the age of 16 that is involved in sexual activity.
How common is child sexual abuse in Zambia today?
So on average, we see about 4 cases of child sexual abuse at University Teaching Hospital, children's hospitals. Last year, for example, we saw a total of 1,315 cases. Of these, over 1,200 were girls and only 39 were boys. So indeed, it is quite common. In addition, I must hasten to mention that not all cases are reported. So there are very few cases that are reported and that end up at our facilities. Yes.
Can you also help us understand, if at all, there are any the types of child sexual abuse that are there?
Yes, Nelson, we do have various types of child sexual abuse. It can be fondling, so where the perpetrator fondles with the private parts of this child. It can be masturbation, where the perpetrator forces this child to fondle with the private parts or to masturbate per se. It may be prostitution, where the perpetrator forces this child to be involved in sexual acts for gainment of funds or for payment. It can also be pornography, where this child is exposed to obscene pictures or videos. It can also involve obscene phone calls or sending of text messages. And in addition, it can also involve various types of sexual activity. It can be penile vaginal penetration, or oral sex, or anal sex. So these are the various types of sexual abuse that a child may be exposed to.
Someone might be wondering, how is sending a sexual text to a child qualify to be sexual abuse? How does non-penetration of activities, for example, just fondling a child, allowing a child to masturbate you or anything, really qualify to be sexual abuse?
So a child is not fully mature or developed to understand these things that you've mentioned. For example, touching or fondling of the breasts, masturbation, penile vaginal intercourse. And that, according to our laws of Zambia, any child who is below the age of 16 is not fully developed or mature to understand these processes or these sexual acts. And in that case, it is against the law of the country. Yes.
Looking at your experience, and of course looking at the cases that you have received at UTH Children's Hospital so far involving child sexual abuse, according to the records, who are the perpetrators really?
So, over 80% of cases of child sexual abuse, the perpetrator is known. Okay? The perpetrator can be either a biological father, can be an uncle, can be an aunt, can be a cousin, can be the day-to-day neighbors that we come across and can also be a stranger. But the key thing I'd like to emphasize that 80% of the cases, the perpetrator is known to the child.
When you talk about the perpetrator being known, does it mean they're usually arrested, jailed, taken to court, prosecuted?
So what I mean by the perpetrator is known, this is someone that we interact with daily. This is someone that we hold in high esteem, we give respect to. So like I mentioned, examples I gave can be a father to the child, it can be an uncle, it can be a cousin, it can be a friend, and can be a neighbor. Of course, like I mentioned, there are cases that we come across where the perpetrator runs away and it's difficult to find them. Okay? And there are cases whereby when it occurs, because of the dynamics regarding child sexual abuse, you find that it's not reported to the facility. But within that home setting, the perpetrator is known to the child.
Interesting. What may lead, or what really leads, some of these adults that you've mentioned really to engage in child sexual abuse?
So there are various reasons that have been studied to find out why these adults may be involved in child sexual abuse. Amongst the reasons are, of course, we know there is this myth going around that, when a man sleeps with a young girl, they'll be cured of HIV, which is not true. There are some what are involved in what I would call ritual practices, that if, for example, if they sleep with a child, they'll become rich. Okay? And then some just because of that selfish desire that they have to have sexual activity with this child. And in some instances also, it's just the issue of power, the dynamics of power between the gender, male and female. So you find that they want to exhibit this power on this child.
Interesting. What are some of the risk factors that might contribute to a child being sexually abused?
Thank you for that question, Nelson. So there are several risk factors that may predispose a child to being sexually abused. Amongst them, one, if there's poverty. We know if there's poverty in the home and the breadwinner is one who is involved in child sexual abuse, the other partner or the mother may not report this matter to the police. Secondly, low educational level of the parents. They may not know that this is an offense and may not report this matter to the police. Another risk factor is a child who's being brought up in a home where there's alcohol and drug abuse. Because of the alcohol and the abuse of drugs, these parents may not be able to understand or fully comprehend what they're doing and may actually end up abusing this child. In addition, children who are brought up in foster care, they're at high risk of being sexually abused. Children who are being brought up in adoption centers, for example, or those who are living in stepfather, stepmother kind of arrangement. And also, generally speaking, girls are more vulnerable than boys to being sexually abused.
So that simply means many perpetrators of sexual abuse are usually men.
Yes, that's true. In fact, if you look at our statistics, like I mentioned earlier, 1,200 girls were sexually abused compared to 39 boys only in Lusaka.
What are some of the signs and symptoms that may indicate that this child perhaps might have gone through some form of sexual abuse, or this child might have been sexually abused?
Thank you, Nelson, for that question. So, there are what I would call red flags. Every parent needs to be aware of these signs and symptoms that a child may be sexually abused. One of them will be a sudden change in the behavior. You find a child may lose self-esteem, or they may have this unexplained fear. Maybe fear of a person, maybe fear of a certain place in the house, for example, if it occurred in the house. It may also be a change in terms of toilet habits. If a child is toilet trained, suddenly you notice that the child is bedwetting or soiling their clothes. It also may affect their school performance. So you find suddenly their school performance is going down. They're also having disciplinary issues at school. Amongst other signs as well, you may find, for example, they'll have abnormal vaginal discharge. They may have vaginal bleeding, or they may have injury, which may suggest sexual abuse. In addition, also, they may have a pregnancy. You find they fall pregnant and that will also be a sign that this child was sexually abused.
Are these victims of a child sexual abuse able to disclose when they go through such kind of a painful experience? How many, in line with your work, have you come across children who report the matter to their parents on their own?
Nelson, children do not report easily. In fact, it's a process. They may not report immediately that they've been sexually abused. They may give hints, for example, that they've been sexually abused, and they may also have signs that I've mentioned. Abdominal vaginal discharge, for example, bleeding, genital pain, or any other signs that I've mentioned earlier on. And no matter what children will do, they will try to inform the person that they're closest to. It can be their mother, it can be their teacher, or any other adult that is close to them. And they'll give the information in bits, and it'll be up now for the parent to really recognize this and take this further for investigation.
Is this a serious crime in Zambian communities, especially if that abuse is a family affair? Perhaps it could be maybe the elder brother, the one who definitely sexually abuses the young sister, or it's something that has happened between cousins, or maybe it's a father involved or the uncle involved. Should that really be a case to be taken outside? It's a family issue, by the way.
So according to the laws of Zambia, in section 138 of the penal code, it's an offense. So anybody that has sexual intercourse with a child below the age of 16 is actually committing an offense according to the laws of Zambia and can be imprisoned for that. So it does not matter whether it is in a home setting or it is outside. It is a brother, it's a cousin, it's an uncle, it's a father. That's an offense and that must be reported. Of course, like I hinted earlier, most of these cases are not reported because you find that the breadwinner is actually the perpetrator. And so as a family, they may not want to report this matter to the police because of fear of losing the source of income that that perpetrator is presenting or is providing for the family.
In line with the cases that have been reported so far, which involve obviously a close family relation, to say, if at all it is discovered that perhaps one of the members is the perpetrator, how best can we handle such an issue if it happens within the family?
So I would advise parents who are in such a situation to report the matter to the police. Once the matter is reported to the police will open up a docket for this case, and the survivor and the parents will be taken to the nearest health facility where the child will be examined, evidence collected, and a report generated. So this report will be made in the form of a ZP32 form, which is a medical form, and a form for rape and defilement. Thereafter, the child will be placed in what we call a safe home, outside of that home where the incident occurred, to protect the child. In addition, the child will also be offered counseling services, and so is the parent that presented the child to the facility. So we do have mechanisms in place to help place the child in a safe home, and also to help the mother or the guardian cope with this situation.
Looking at what we have seen so far, and of course the nature of the cases that have been reported by the police and of course through various media and platforms, are our homes anyway safer for the upbringing of our children? Is our environment really friendly for the upbringing of a child?
Of course, not all homes are safe for the upbringing of children. However, there are certain things that we can do as parents to make our homes safer for our children. Amongst the things that we can do as parents is that, one, we should never leave a child unaccompanied. Secondly, we need to be aware of who our child is spending time with. As you know, over 80% of cases of child sexual abuse, perpetrator is known. Secondly, we need to be aware of our environment. For example, if a relative comes to visit, I need to be aware of the relative that is coming to visit. I need to know where, for example, if I have a daughter, where my daughter is. Secondly, as we are raising our children as parents, we need to educate our children about sex and reproductive health. What do I mean by this? From an early age, we need to educate our children that nobody should touch their private parts. Secondly, we need to educate them not to keep a secret. Should any adult person touch their private parts, they should be free to inform any adult or parent at home. Can be a teacher, can be a pastor, or any other elderly person. Thirdly, we need to inform our children about the names of the sexual organs. We need to give them the names as they are. For example, for a female private part, the vagina; for the male private part, the penis. The children should know from an early age what these things are, and should not feel weird about these terminologies. We should also encourage our parents to be aware of the signs, like I mentioned, the red signs, that child sexual abuse may have occurred. For example, if the child has got unexplained fears, if the child is suddenly bedwetting or soiling him or herself, or a child that has got any abnormal vaginal discharge or bleeding or genital pain, these will be red flags that you must be aware of.
What are some of the consequences that may come as a result of child sexual abuse?
Thank you, Nelson. So for the consequences, they may be categorized as short-term consequences and long-term consequences. Among the short-term consequences are that one, they may get sexually transmitted infections, HIV, gonorrhea, syphilis. They may have injury as a result of the sexual act and also afterwards. So they may have bleeding, they may have pain. In addition, they may also fall pregnant as a result of the sexual act. In terms of long-term consequences, they may have mental health issues, for example, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. It also may affect their future relationships as they grow up to become adults. In addition, they may have suicidal tendencies. They may be involved in violent crimes. And in addition, they may also be involved in drugs and alcohol abuse as part of the long-term consequences of child sexual abuse.
Chichin from Ndola is asking, how can we avoid child sexual abuse?
So one, we need to talk about it. As you know, from a historical perspective, child sexual abuse has been considered a taboo. And in most societies, it is frowned upon to discuss about child sexual abuse because of the dynamics in terms of child sexual abuse, where you have an adult and a child. However, in recent times, we've seen there's an increase in terms of sensitization of the community, and we're talking about it. Secondly, we need to be careful with who our children interacts with. We need to be careful where our children are, where they spend time. We need to also educate our children about the underwear rule. Like I mentioned earlier, no one should touch their private parts. Secondly, they should not keep a secret. Should anyone touch them inappropriately, they should definitely report to the parents or any trusted adult.
MCC here says, good afternoon, thank you for the program. It is unfortunate that male children cases have gone in mentioned in our society today. I was a victim of sexual abuse by my father's younger sister and my niece, who were far much older than me. They forced me to penetrate even when I was too small for such. My little manhood then was swollen and painful. This made me to hate girls and affected my intimate relationships with girls, thinking it would be painful. Therefore, please let parents be very considerate of their children, especially when there are extended families in the house. Boys are always abused, even though girls are highly at risk. The rate of boy abuse are lower because they are not usually reported. From this particular experience, really, let me just find out from you. When a boy is sexually abused, are there any physical consequences? For example, some of the things that is mentioned, bruises, sores, and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, really, even today in society, if at all a man comes out on the open and says, I was raped by a woman, well, becomes a laughing stock, because it's not usually believed to be so, because the job of a man is just to go in. So how do those sores, those bruises come about?
Thank you, Nelson. And I would like to agree with the person that sent the text that most cases of child sexual abuse that involve the males are not reported. And as you know, society, because of society's perception that a man is powerful, a man is strong, so it's very difficult for a man to come out there to say, I've been sexually abused. Okay? Now, coming back to the question, so yes, we can see signs that a man has been sexually abused or a child has been sexually abused. So one, they may have physical injuries, they may have lacerations, they may have bleeding, they may have bruises as mentioned earlier on, and if it involves anal sex, they may have anal injuries as well, bleeding, for example, stool incontinences, and these are some of the signs that we see when they present to our facility.
You're still watching Ask the Pediatrician. Our topic of discussion today is quite a delicate topic, really. We are looking at child sexual abuse and making our homes safer for the upbringing of a child. And of course, the number on your screen, that's the one that you're using to get in touch with us, 0955 5070, 0955 5070. If you have had an experience in as far as child sexual abuse is concerned, please feel free to share your experience with us. And if you have got any question, you can as well drop that question, and Dr. Chirwa should be at hand just to respond and perhaps provide at least just basics of counseling and so on and so forth. But please make sure that every time that such things happen, don't forget to get it reported to your nearest police station, and of course take your child to the hospital as well. Just for now, we take a very, very short break. When we come back, we continue looking at the text messages that we have.
Hi there. My name is Daliso Emmanuel Chanda, but you can call me Deck. I'm that guy who knows who is cool and who is not. Do you know who is cool and who is not? Come, let's sit down and see.
Good morning, boys and girls.
Good morning, teacher.
Today, we're going to talk about alcohol. Give me examples of alcohol that you know.
Wine. Spirits. Jelly. And beer.
Very good, children. How is alcohol taken?
They drink it.
Let's watch a short video about alcohol.
Yes, teacher.
What have we learned from the movie?
Alcohol causes one to get dizzy and can't walk properly. If one drinks alcohol at school, they will be stopped from learning or taste away.
Are children allowed to drink alcohol?
No! No!
What would you say if someone wanted you to take alcohol?
Teacher! Me! I would tell that it's not good and it's harmful. I would tell my mommy about that person. I would say that good children don't drink alcohol. I would say that smart children don't drink alcohol.
Very good. Let's say no to alcohol.
No alcohol! Yay!
Remember, keep away from alcohol because it's not cool to drink. Be cool. Say no to alcohol.
The hour has begun to learn and have some fun with friends and everyone. Now, today, if you're bored at home, this is the perfect show to learn and how you grow. You grow. Make it your best moment today. Turn on set lights, cause we'll have to share. Word so fan we'll bring to you. It's Q Club. Q Club is the best for you and I. Lift your voice and raise your hand to sing. We're teens of fan, we'll bring to you.
Welcome to Faith Avenue.
Guide man.
Okay.
The way I'm used to test.
Right here with your brother Minister Cage.
Twalumba mwami pakutoba nyantomwi.
Shine like a light. Shine like a light.
You know, people with ideas have no power, and people with power have no ideas.
Now, being a man of God, after a fervent prayer, you sit down.
Looking fabulous doesn't come naturally. You need to know how to match your clothes, keep up with the latest trends, accessorize your outfits, and also keep your body in shape. On Fashion Frenzy, our local designers will hand you all the tips and tricks on how to look fabulous. Fashion Frenzy every Thursday at 20:30.
Your favorite music video show. In terms of music videos, we have the latest, the most trending, the most happening.
Zilile, man. Remember, say I told you we're chilling with the prettiest and coolest girl on TV road. So stay glued to QTV, you know, log on.
The best gift one could give another is a clock, simply because it is a constant reminder that nothing lasts forever, that our time is not limitless. The tick and talk that never stops warns us in which the time passes us by with or without announcement, for its nature is to remain constant and eternal. Maybe that's why we humans tend to regret the time we didn't cherish and spend well enough, because our nature is never safe and sound. Catch me, Janet, on Clockwise every Sunday at 20 hours.
All right, so welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The topic on your screen, that's what we are discussing today: child abuse, child sexual abuse, and making our homes safer. And my guest on the program today is Dr. Chirwa from UTH at Children's Hospital, who is here trying to help us really understand how deep child sexual abuse is and what we can do to make our homes safer. Now, Dr. Chirwa, let us come to a household setup here. What should be the first reaction when perhaps parents, guardians realize that one of the children is giving out some signs, showing some signs that he or she might have been sexually abused by somebody close to them?
Thank you very much, Nelson. So, first of all, the parents need to identify who the perpetrator was. They may ask the child. They want to find out, are there any injuries that the child may have? For example, what's the child complaining of? Once that is established, they have to now report to the nearest health facility and or the nearest health center, whichever is nearer to the home setting. One thing I would like to urge parents, which I've experienced over the years handling cases of child sexual abuse, that let's, as much as possible, avoid the temptation of checking. What I mean by checking, most parents would want to see the injuries, or they'd invite an aunt or an elderly member of the family to come and check the child for these injuries. By checking, we're actually subjecting the child to more trauma. So I'd urge parents, immediately once they get the information, they rush to the nearest health facility or police stations for onward investigation.
But doctor, if they don't check for that information, how are they going to get the proof? How are they going to get the evidence? Maybe the child is just speaking from without.
So children would always tell you the truth. If a child tells you I've been sexually abused, you have to believe that child. And afterwards, you have to take that child for evaluation by a medical professional. In this case, a pediatrician. So whenever a child tells you that they've been sexually abused, you have to believe that child. Remember, I mentioned that most children would not actually come forth to say they've been sexually abused. So a child tells you they've been sexually abused, you have to believe that child and ensure that that child is evaluated.
How about in instances that, the degree of that sexual abuse is not that much? What I mean is that no penetration was involved. Maybe it's just it's just an issue of fondling. It's just an issue of maybe just allowing a child to masturbate you or something like that. Why should such cases be reported? Why can't they just be taken as, well, not really serious? Maybe just bring the perpetrator here, sit the perpetrator down, kumkaripira and stuff like that, but without taking it out.
The reason why that case must be reported is that, one, if not reported, chances that this cycle of sexual abuse will continue. Remember, it is a cycle. For the perpetrator, it may be a form of gaining sexual gratification. And if that perpetrator is not arrested, he will continue with that kind of pattern. For the survivor, this child who has been sexually abused, be it fondling, be it masturbation, this child is psychologically disturbed or has been mentally disturbed. And this may affect the child's interaction with society. For example, they may withdraw themselves from the community. As a child is growing older, it may affect this child's personal relationships with other people. For example, as they grow older, they get into relationships, it may be affected. It may affect the way they perceive the other partner because of the past history of sexual abuse. So it is important that such cases are reported so that we break the cycle of sexual abuse.
Is that something like the child enjoyed it? Is that something like no physical pain was there? Is there something like the child consented to that? Why I'm asking that is because look at the growth rate of our children today. You'd find that a child is 13. She already has protruding breasts. She already knows a few things about boys' girlfriends and stuff like that. So is there a thing like that?
So children, especially the older, the middle adolescents, okay, they say 13 to 15-year-olds, they may experience sexual satisfaction. However, they are not mentally developed to consent. Okay? The sexual intercourse may be coerced, it may be forced, or there may be deception. They may experience pleasure during the act, or they may experience pain. But whichever way, the fact that sexual abuse has occurred, that, according to the laws of Zambia, is an offense and must be reported. Same thing with the man. They may have an erection, okay, but that does not mean that they are psychologically or mentally prepared for sexual activity. No, they are not. And so such cases must be reported to the nearest police station or health facility.
The problem is that children are not getting laws of their parents. No name here, and of course another text here which just came through says the problem is that they only take it seriously if it is a girl child, not a boy child. Moses Kunduza, Councillor, Naluyanda Clinic. I don't know whether, well, I wouldn't want to say whether there is truth in this or not. Why is it that cases involving boys sexual abused not really taken so seriously in many Zambian communities? It only comes out unless if it's a child who is sexually abused.
Yes, so like I mentioned earlier, because of the power dynamics of society, the power gender-based dynamics, boy children would not report cases of child sexual abuse because the society demands that a boy is powerful, and so sexual abuse cannot occur, cannot affect boys, whereas with girl children is much easier. And so because of societal dynamics, it's not easy for a boy child to come out to say that I've been sexually abused.
Interesting. How about if at all, that sexual act happened between children who are within the same range? It could be that a girl is 14 and a boy is 14 as well. And perhaps they are involved in some sort of sexual activity. And perhaps one of the parents or parents found them doing that. Should that case be reported to the police?
Absolutely true. So such a case must be reported to the police. And for juveniles, we have got special mechanisms in which juveniles are treated. One of the mechanisms that they'll be involved in counseling, okay, and the parents also will be involved in the counseling process. And of course, our laws and our judicial system has got ways of dealing with juveniles in the country that are involved in such kind of acts.
Interesting. Another one here based on a personal experience from Natasha says, when I was 5 to 6 years old, I was abused by a man who was 35 years. At that time, I was staying with my granny in Kabwe just after I lost my parents, and since then, I have been having problems with my stomach and my private parts. So, Doc, what can I do?
Thank you, Natasha, for that text message. So I would urge Natasha to go to the nearest health facility so that she can be evaluated. She may have a sexually transmitted infection, which will need urgent treatment. So Natasha, I would urge you, go to the nearest health facility, make sure you are checked and you're given the appropriate treatment.
How can children really be protected from sexual abuse? And who is responsible for protecting a child?
So parents are responsible. As parents, we need to protect our children, okay, and society at large. For example, if I suspect there's child sexual abuse taking place at my neighbor's home, I have the responsibility and duty to report that matter. If I suspect child sexual abuse at their home, I have the responsibility to report that matter. So parents are the key people who can report such matters of child sexual abuse. So, amongst the things that we can do to protect our children from child sexual abuse, one, we need to be aware of where our children are. Secondly, we need to avoid sending our children, for example, it is quite common, especially in peri-urban areas where parents send their children at night to buy groceries or to buy alcohol for the father or cigarettes. Let's avoid that because we're putting our children in harm's way. Secondly, we need to be aware of the environment in which our children are. Who are they interacting with? Okay, so that we know where our children are and we know what is going on. Thirdly, we need to educate our children. Okay, if there's any man or any woman that touches a private part, we need to encourage them. We need to empower them, first of all, to say no to that act, and secondly, to report such an act to the parents themselves or any trusted adult.
Interesting. What are some of the implications that may come as a result of a child being sexually abused?
So the implications, this may affect the child in various ways. One, they may have physical injuries. Okay, maybe bleeding, maybe pain. They may acquire sexually transmitted infections, gonorrhea, syphilis, and also HIV. If it's a girl, she may even fall pregnant. For long-term consequences, they may have mental disorders. Okay, they may fall into depression. They may have post-traumatic stress disorder. They are actually at risks of taking risky behaviors, involvement in drug abuse, involvement in alcohol abuse, and also they may be involved also in violent crimes. Furthermore, as they grow older, it may affect their relationships as they grow older with the different people in society.
Undisputed from Chile Labombo says, good afternoon guys, I like the program. A man is always a suspect in everything. Wow, a man needs to be tamed, I guess. Another one here says, I think government should impose a stiff punishment to the culprits because it's too much. Paul Kalabamwansa. And another one here, I'm yet to come to that, Doc. This one says, child sexual abuse is an offense and must be reported. Mano from Shiwangandu. Then we also have another one here which says, it's good. Children with 16 years to get... Is it good for children with 16 years to get married at that age? Mr. Kunda from Sorowezi, Kawama. Maybe you can respond to that.
Thank you, sir. I think let me begin with Mr. Kunda. So, as you know, the government is trying to discourage childhood marriages. So, Definitely 16 is not an appropriate age for someone to marry because they're not physically or mentally developed to handle the stresses of marriage. Secondly, I would like to also mention that the laws in Zambia are stiff actually. The minimum sentence is 15 years for defilement in this country. So I think the laws are stiff. What I think makes people engage in these activities that they think that when they're involved in child sexual abuse, this case won't be reported and they'll go scot-free. Remember I mentioned that children do not report cases of child sexual abuse because one, the perpetrator will threaten the child. For example, the perpetrator may say, if you tell your mother, I'm going to kill your mother. And that for a child is very serious and will tend to keep that abuse for a very long time without disclosing it. And so because of these dynamics, perpetrators feel that they can go ahead, sexually abuse a child, and they know that they'll go scot-free. But now with the sensitization of the society and the community, more and more people are getting aware and knowledgeable with the dangers of child sexual abuse and are reporting these matters to the police so that the matter can be further investigated.
What is the custodian punishment for incest concerning a young girl and an elderly relative? Can this sentence be subjected to presidential pardon? Regards, Jones.
Well, that question, I may not be the appropriate authority to answer that question. Yeah, so I may not be appropriate person to answer that question.
I was thinking so because I know that question definitely will need to be responded to. I actually even failed to ask the question of should it be a bailable offense if at all a child is defiled or anything, because many of the time that we have seen a child is abused and perhaps a perpetrator is bailed. And chances are there that that perpetrator can go back to the family, negotiate with them, and stuff like that. But anyways, we'll try by all means to bring to also engage the relevant authorities just to come and explain conditions and whether it's bailable or not, and of course any related matters to that. But in line with that,
just to mention, so if the child sexual abuse occurs in a home and the perpetrator is known, is a close family member, was a breadwinner, so such a child, if they present to a health facility, would place them in a safe home away from the perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Interesting. Naomi in Lusaka is asking, my question is there treatment for the abused and the abuser, and why is it common in female children? Maybe in line with Naomi's reasoning, I would also want to find out if that child is there any, apart from psychological treatment, any physical treatment that is offered?
So the treatment of a child who has been sexually abused would depend on the injuries that the child presents with. There may be life-threatening injuries which may need theater. There may be life-threatening injuries which will need medical care in a health facility. And there may be injuries where the child can be treated as an outpatient department. So depending on the injuries, the child will be managed in a holistic approach. One, we involve counselors. So we do have nurse counselors who counsel our children who've been sexually abused. We also have medical treatment. We give them treatments to prevent them from getting STIs. If it's a girl, prevent her from getting pregnant. And also we give them medical treatment, what we call PEP, post-exposure prophylaxis, against HIV. Secondly, we do also have what I would call advocates. So we have advocates, for example, like UTH. They go in the community to find out how the family is coping. Are they having any challenges? What can be done for them to help them cope with this child sexual abuse? In addition, we do have community sensitization meetings where members of our team go in the community to sensitize them about child sexual abuse and the dangers of child sexual abuse. And then for those that may require further evaluation and management, we do also have psychiatrists who are available, child psychiatrists who are available to help with the management of these children being sexually abused.
Another text here from Mr. Boyd Mudenda from Zingalume says, hello there, Mr. Nelson. I'm really enjoying the show. It's true that sexual abuse of boys is not noticed because they don't report their cases. But as for women, whenever they are abused, they report the cases, and therefore it will be settled. Keep up with the good programs. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Boyd. And of course, we appreciate your response as well. This one, no name here, but it says, do government clinics treat ED? I don't know what ED is.
I'm not sure what ED is. Yeah, I'm not sure what ED is. But if a child has been sexually abused, we do give them medications to prevent it from getting sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. In addition, for girls, we do give them contraceptives to prevent them from getting pregnant.
Another one here says, I'm a 25-year-old. I am at 25 years old. There is this lady, aged 33, used to look after me in her house all night. Used to lock me up in her house all night, having sex, sometimes during day. When tired, wow, the text seemed to be quite abbreviated there, but I'll get back to it once I understand it well. This one says, I like the program and I'm really learning from it, from Chongo in Ndola. And another one here says, child sexual abuse is an offense and must be reported. What can you do in this situation where a perpetrator is reported but negotiations with the family and the girl is still in love with the same person and still holds back to him? Mr. Mano Ignatius from Shuangandu. I think I had asked this question before, Doc.
Yes.
Where
yes,
I
yes.
asked to say, how about if at all, the sexual abuse involves a 15-year-old child who knows a little about sex, who's been exposed to sex, and of course she's in love with this perpetrator who is about, let's say, 21 years of age, and sexual intercourse has taken place, but families have discovered about this. Should they be negotiating about defilement, or they should be negotiating about marriage? What should be negotiated?
No, not at all. So no negotiation should take place. This is an offense and should be reported to the law enforcement officers. Secondly, I'd like to mention that that girl is not mentally developed to understand the magnitude of marriage.
So it's not a marriage material.
So it's not marriage. It's not at all. That's abuse, and so must be reported. Yes.
Hello, Doc. My doctor. Hello, Doc. My daughter has been sexually abused by the driver who has been taking her school. Now, my question is, how can I overcome this? Because I'm thinking about it day and night, and my daughter is only 5 years old. And how can I counsel her? I'm really hurt. Mlenga Mwila from Kasama.
Mlenga Mwila, in Kasama, we do have a one-stop center. So the government has rolled out one-stop centers in various towns. Kasama is one of them. There's one in Mansa, Chipata, Lusaka. We have several in Chawama, for example. We have one at UTH, Chongwe, Mazabuka, Solwezi. So in Kasama, I would urge her to go to the one-stop center where we have a team of men and women that help with the counseling process. She will not manage to handle it alone, so she will need the team to help her counsel the daughter and also the mother herself. In addition, I would like to stress one point I think is quite common amongst parents, to entrust children with taxi drivers. Okay? First of all, we need to know who we are entrusting our child with. Remember, I said that over 80% of cases of child sexual abuse, the perpetrator is known to the child. So we need to try as much as possible to be very careful with who we entrust our child with, because those are the same people who may actually sexually abuse our children.
Finally, Doc, as we wrap it up for today, child sexual abuse does not only affect a child. The whole entire family is affected. When we talk about counseling, should other members also be subjected to counseling, or maybe the focus should be on the child who's been abused?
So counseling, we have counselors for parents to help them cope, to help them interact with the child. Okay. We also have child counselors who help the child cope and also help them recover from the abuse. It's a long process, so we do give them several reviews. So they come for reviews, we see how they're doing. For those that have defaulted, we do have advocates, like for example, at UTH, the Pediatric Center of Excellence, we do have advocates that go in the community to try to trace these children and families who have been subjected to this evil thing of society.
Well, Dr. Chirwa, thank you so much for
Thank you very much, Nelson,
help
for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
The pleasure has always been ours, and of course, thank you so much for taking off time to come and explain really this delicate issue. Just look at how messages have been coming, and of course, as we speak, it is just because of time. Otherwise, we've got plenty of messages coming through. People trying to understand really the paradox surrounding, sexual abuse. But thank you so much, and of course, we might actually call again if at all we look at this issue, and of course, we need further clarification.
Absolutely, I'll be very grateful. If you can call upon me again, I'll be more than willing to come and share more information with regards to child sexual abuse and how we can make our homes safe for our children.
Thank you so much. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, as we get into 16 days of gender activism, we also need to remember that a child needs to be protected. A child needs to feel safe in our homes and, of course, in our environment. And it takes you and I to make sure that the environment in which our children are is safe and, of course, is conducive for their upbringing. If we fall on an information, we hear of information involving child sexual abuse, please let us not even hold back. Let us make sure that we report that case to relevant authorities. Even if it involves a breadwinner, let us get it reported and let the relevant authorities definitely do their jobs. Remember, the future of a child depends on their upbringing, and of course, it also depends on the environment in which they are definitely brought. The example of Oprah Winfrey really shows how deep, sexual abuse could definitely affect a child. If you have never read that story, you can read it and you understand why a child needs to be protected. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you join us next week Sunday for another exciting edition as we come through to discuss another issue that also affects the health of a child. On behalf of everyone involved, it's bye-bye and God bless.